How do you do apartment security? Someone asked me if I had, someone new. He said I'm a new guard, and how do I do apartment security? Do you have any tips for me? Well, first tip is to stay within policy. Uh, uh, the other tips are, you need to ask questions. Uh, you need to have a roster of who lives there and who doesn't live there in the empty apartments. You need to talk with the manager if you can, and make sure everybody's on the same page, that with the security company and what their expectations are the same. You need to talk to maintenance, because maintenance knows a lot about what goes on that complex. And then you need to know the difference between a city ordinance, a state law, what you can enforce and what you can't enforce, and what's a contract violation. Yeah, okay, so you need to know what's a contract violation, which you cannot enforce. You can only inform. Sir, you cannot be in the common areas after 10 o'clock, after 11 o'clock. You can stay on your patio, your balcony, to and from your car, but you just can't loiter on the breezeways, in the parking lots, in front of the apartment, on the steps, loiter in your car, just sitting in your car. You can't do any of that. And that would be a contract violation. You need to know what an ordinance is. An ordinance is not a city law. I mean, an ordinance is like a city law, but it's not a state law. And usually, you, security guard, as a citizen, can't enforce that. You cannot enforce city ordinances. And so, you need to know what a state law is. And then you need to know, in your state, under which conditions can you say arrest. Now, the police have a completely different definition of arrest, because they have a firearm. Their arrest powers as compared to your arrest powers is like comparing a firearm to a BB gun. They don't consider what you can do as an arrest, because they have a firearm, because they have this much broader authority than you have. Yours is very specific. So you need to determine that, and then, like I said, you have to stay within policy, whether or not somebody wants you to do it or not. It's that kind of thing. Now, I've had an interview recently, and I told the guy, we're talking about apartment security, and I told the guy I kind of do apartment security more like the police. I kind of serve and protect. I'll stay within policy, but I'm not going to let anybody put me in a difficult demographic and turn me into a paper tiger. It's just not going to happen. And so I usually ask questions like, what do you want me to do if I see a burglary, a robbery, an armed robbery, a carjacking, a car theft, someone breaking into a car, aggravated battery, a fight? What are your policies on those things? What do you want me to do? And I say this, one of the reasons why security there, apartment complex has security there, is because they need to provide a minimum level of security so they don't get sued. Because there's so much going on in that property, maybe, I don't know. So that they don't get sued. And then once you're there, there's a minimum level of security that you should provide, especially in, I guess, felonious situations. Yeah, security company, so the security company don't get sued, but a lot of people don't know they can't sue the security company, because they were there providing security, and even if they were told not to do anything, there's an expectation of security. So, you'd actually sue the management company, the apartment complex, and the security company. I would sue them both, personally. So there's that. So, okay. So you talk to the security company, the policies and procedures, things they want you to do. You talk to the management company, everybody's on the same page. Hopefully they provided you with a roster. You want a roster. You talk to the maintenance people, because the maintenance people know everything. And then you start to take the pulse of the apartment complex. You want to find out what's normal here, what's not normal here, what you should be concerned about, what you shouldn't be concerned about. what is a bunch of lip service and what really has the potential for something to seriously jump off. Um, and you can kind of take the pulse of that place. It'll take you about 30 to 90 days. At minimum 30, at maximum 90, right? You always want to go in slow. You don't want to go in as a hard ass. Like, boom, this is this, and this is this, and this is this. Like, listen, dude, you can't do this. And, pretty much that's kind of what it is. Let me give you a couple examples. Oh, before I do, I posted a video of a Berkeley, Michigan police officer on my Facebook page, Darren Long, GRSE. And, he had some words of wisdom. And one of the words of wisdom was, listen, he always introduces himself to whoever. I generally don't, not even personally. And I don't know why, I just don't. Right? But he always introduces himself. Then he tells, okay, such and such, this is the problem and here's what I need you to do. Now, I think it's a good rule of thumb. By the way, you're not an occupying force. By the way, you're there to kind of serve and protect. Or really, you're there to serve the wishes of the management company. Whether or not you decide you want to serve and protect is something, for you to decide. Me, I generally want to serve and protect. I want to look out for everybody as best as I can. So, you take the pulse, you figure out what's going on, you figure out what's normal, you started to associate faces with apartments, and faces with particular vehicles, and vehicles with particular apartments. Not only the vehicles of the residents, but the vehicles of the people that are coming to visit them. And you're taking it slow. It's like, in some ways it's like policing, but you don't have to arrest anyone. You're not there to arrest anyone. That's not your job. Your job is not to do that. Now, if you want to take on that liability and the security company allows you to take on that liability, you can. Or you want to take on that liability even though the security company doesn't want to take on that liability, all depending on, what you see and how you feel about it. You can. Just know that, once you step outside of that policy, whatever little protection that policy gave you for your actions completely evaporates. Now, like I said, you got to know the difference between, a policy violation, a city ordinance, both of which are not enforceable. You got to know the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony, and what that state allows you to do as far as crimes and felonious crimes. And then you can make your decision. Then you got to think about reasonable man, and you should look that up. You got to think about duty of care. You should look that up. And then you can continue on from that. But when you start to study law, you can't just read the statutes. You got to read case law to see how the courts are generally applying that statute in that state. That takes precedence. The newest case or the latest case takes precedence. What the fuck's the matter with me? It takes precedence. Okay. The latest case or the newest case is the one that's most fucking important. Right? And then maybe federal law from that circuit court that covers that state. Now these things are important. You should review these things very, very conservatively. Right? And you need to know everything about brandishing firearms if it's an armed post. Me personally, I wouldn't do apartment security without being armed. Fuck all that. You're a first responder for the most part. You need a level 3 holster. If you're doing it at night, you need a super bright flashlight, because there ain't nothing like seeing a problem that's over there from way the fuck over here. When I mean like 50 yards, 75 yards, 100 yards away, that's when you want to see that problem. That's when you want to be able to illuminate that problem. That fucking far away, man. But no problems at all. And I got videos from GRSE Detroit where you can see, how bright my flashlights are. And I'm standing in the parking lot, and that doorway's, every bit of like 25, 30 yards away, and I light it up. Or a car is like every bit of 20 yards away, and I light it up completely. So it's that kind of thing. So you got the roster, you got the policies, you're going slow, and you're figuring out, and like I said, stuff that you can't enforce, don't bother to enforce. Let people know and simply write it up. I've been in some situations where I almost had to shoot a guy. Actually, I've been in two situations. One where I almost had to shoot 3 people, and another one where I almost had to shoot 1 or 2. Behind some simple policies because they didn't feel like, they had to follow them. And, for the most part, since I had, I've spoken to one guy before, and he was drunk, and the other guys would just kind of, take up for their buddy. Hell, I was just going to inform them that they couldn't do it and walk the hell on off. They're the ones who got aggressive with me. And they simply could die. They could have died for it. Because I do have a personal policy of draw first, quick to draw, slow to fire. I'm not super scared out here in these streets. If I was, people would have been dead a long time ago. I'd have shot a lot of fucking people. But I'm always concerned for my safety. I'm very quick to draw, but I'm very slow to fire. It takes a little bit to get me to pull that trigger. It takes me a little bit. And because I'm going to establish intent. I'm going to set you up. I'm going to do a whole lot of things to exonerate myself from the situation. So anyway, you need a level 3 holster. You should have a taser. You should have some less lethal or less than lethal alternative. All depending on what state you're in, a taser is either considered less lethal or less than lethal. And why? Why should you have this? Well, you can shoot them a little bit faster if you need to, but it's not about hurting people. But mostly, it takes murder off the table. It removes intent. If you got a firearm and you got a taser and you pull your taser, you can't say I was trying to murder the guy. Not unless you misuse the taser. And, you should be taser certified. You should be ass certified. I'm taser certified. I'm ass certified. I'm certified with a 9mm. Certified. Well, I never certified with the 40. I'm certified with handcuffs. I'm certified with OC spray. I'm certified. I spent the money to become certified. So no one says that they just put me out there and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. You should have a camera. You should have a camera that works well at night if you're working at night. And everything else I can't tell you because, I don't know, what you're doing. They may allow loitering in cars. If they allow loitering in cars, I would go ahead and ID the car and ID the people. Or at least not, I would identify the car and say something to the people. So I'm going to ID the car by taking this license plate, and I'm going to do that. And when I do that, there's going to be a date and time stamp. A date and time stamp, all depending on what kind of camera you use, the date and time stamp may be just the camera started at this particular time, 9:38 p.m. or 21:3800 hours on such and such date. And if you stop that person or did that 15 minutes into that video, then you should be able to extrapolate the time. So it's going to place that vehicle there. I'm going to ask people, hey man, I'm just going to this apartment. Do you live here? I might check you off the roster, all depending how I feel. Or, I just might record your face and your voice, which is why I'm always shining my light in people's faces. Hey, I'm not, shining that bright ass light of mine in their face for no reason. I'm lighting up the car because I want that image crystal clear on my camera, or as clear as it can be on my camera of their face. I might do like Zimmerman a little, because Zimmerman was kind of stupid. if you're on the property and I don't know what you're doing and I don't know where you're going, I'm not necessarily going to stop you and say anything to you. I'm going to, I'm just going to watch you, and I'm going to let you know that I'm watching you. And if you don't look like or appear to have any place as to where you're going, then, then I might say something to you. So GRSE Detroit, the guy got out the car. Somebody had been carjacked on that property that day or maybe the week before. And so I just wanted to know what was up. And plus, somebody had already been on that property. There's no video for it. And he was on that property. He was walking around, and I started to follow him from a distance, and then he ended up running off the property. So I wanted to see where this guy was going, and the guy was like, he didn't know what I was doing, and he asked me, are you going to watch me like my bitch? And that's why you hear me say, yeah, just like your bitch. Because he came at me sideways, and, I just wasn't feeling it that day. So there's that. So that's why I do that. If there's a drug apartment, I shut down drug apartments. I usually don't engage the drug dealer. What I do is I usually send their customers away. And then I get the property manager to, in the case of Michigan, I think it's file a writ for simple possession. But in Georgia, you file a dispossessory warrant for simple possession of the property for violation of the contract. Indicative, some things are just strictly indicative of drug trafficking. Other than that, if they're dealing outside their apartment, and before then, even if they're dealing, I might let you know, hey, don't do this here. Don't do this here. Now, I don't have to put him in jail. Don't do this here, right? You do this, any place else, but you can't do this here, right? Now, I don't like misdemeanors. I like felonies, and that's the warning. That's your warning, right? I'm not, if I go through the hassle of doing something, I don't want you in jail for 9 months. I want you in jail for a couple years. I want you to go away because you didn't pay attention. You didn't listen. And your activities may have endangered this community. Drug dealing, listen, nothing exists in the vacuum. It exists in the context of one another. And the crack house down the street does affect what the fuck goes down 5 houses down. The drug spot in the apartment complex may affect what the fuck happens. Like somebody lives 4 or 5 apartments down or in the next building, and you get into a shootout, or you and your friends are too rowdy, or any old kind of thing can happen behind this drug shit. So nah, you gotta go. You gotta stop that, or you gotta go. Now, if you're just smoking some weed, I don't really care too much. The property management company may care, but I'm not going to really enforce that unless you're in the common areas. Go smoke that shit in your house. That's my own personal policy. If you don't, I will go ahead and inform, the property manager what you're doing. They'll write you a letter, and then, whatever they decide to do is whatever they decide to do, because I already told you. But drug dealing is something I just simply won't allow. That's just how I do apartment security. That's how I do. I just won't allow drug dealing, retail, apartment security, whatever the fuck. Ain't about to happen. Some things I'm just simply not in control of. I don't think there's anything else I can tell you about apartment security. You take on as much liability as you want, or as much liability as they'll allow you. Generally, you should stay within policy. You shouldn't do apartment security without a firearm. If you do have a firearm, you should have one that allows you to buy a level 3 holster. A Serpa holster is a level 2. You're a first responder. No. Level 3, if you do work night shifts, you want a super bright flashlight that can reach across the world, and you want a non-lethal option, right? You don't have to have handcuffs. Handcuffs are a luxury. You don't have to take anybody into custody. You can, but you don't have to. If you look at the word arrest, you are not free to leave. So I can simply not allow you to leave and arrest you. You are not allowed to leave. I don't have to take you into custody. Now, police don't normally consider, or really don't consider, what you do as a citizen as arrest. I think I covered this, I'm not sure. But it's like comparing their arrest powers. It's like comparing a firearm to a BB gun. They have much broader authority, so they don't consider your authority to be of any consequence at all. And I think that's pretty much all I can say about security. You're not there to be a tough ass. You're not there to put people in prison. You're there to do a couple of, you're just there to enforce the policies of the management company. And, be cool and maybe help some people out if you can. But then if you got to do some things, then you got to do some things. And I'll let you figure that out because everybody's situation is different.